There's no further discussion on the amendment. It is now in order to consider amendments to the ANS to H.R. 839. I recognize Ranking Member Huffman for the purpose of offering an amendment designated Huffman number 1. Without objection, the amendment is considered read.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I have to say, I'm scratching my head with this rationale that somehow this bill is preventing the government from being forced to buy from willing sellers. There's nothing in this plan that forces the government to do anything. Congress is always there to provide oversight, to make sure that we're not overextending the federal estate beyond what we can afford to maintain and operate. But this is an important conservation plan. Everybody who knows anything about this habitat and this refuge in this area will tell you that. And this bill is arbitrarily constraining it in ways that create this weird episode of role reversal, trading places, where I'm talking to you about private property rights. But that's sort of where we are on this really wrong-headed bill. It infringes on the property rights of folks in Texas who wish to collaborate with the Fish and Wildlife Service and utilize their land for conservation purposes. And it could include easements, maybe not fee transfers, so the federal estate might not even expand, just conservation easements to achieve some objectives with market-based mechanisms, and you're trying to shut all of that down. The science is clear. With the sandhill crane, lesser prairie chicken, many other grassland bird species, they need additional habitat in one of the most threatened ecosystems on the planet, the southern high plains. As we heard from Mr. Rowley during the testimony he gave on this bill, there are landowners in that area who would like to use their land for conservation purposes, and we shouldn't stand in their way. The Muleshoe Land Protection Plan offers them the opportunity to do that in collaboration with the Fish and Wildlife Service, and there are a variety of voluntary pathways to establish long-term protections for habitats that benefit these birds and other wildlife. The Land Protection Plan does not require anyone to put their land into conservation if they don't want to, and it's not shutting down oil and gas development. It is simply offering another option for landowners to consider. So my amendment would restore some integrity to private property rights in this situation. It would ensure that Congress isn't shutting the door on these landowners and their options to work with the Fish and Wildlife Service. It would require the Secretary of Interior to verify at least that the bill doesn't jeopardize private property rights before it can take effect. If you value property rights, which you used to say that you did, you should be voting in favor of this amendment. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Ms. Ledger-Fernandez, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair, I really do appreciate this amendment because I think that, once again, we're confronted with the issue of Republicans often saying one thing, but then doing another with their vote and their bills. And the idea that what you're doing is, when they talk about the amount of land, we need to remember that this is an area within which private landowners may or may not choose to put their land in conservation easements or to even say, I want to outright sell it. But that is their decision. And it can happen in ways where it may be a small portion of the area that has been identified. This is an area that has been identified as potential for being able to provide these habitats. And then the individual landowners, they have the choice as to how to participate or not. And so what you're doing is you're saying, we think this is an important goal. You're right, Mr. Chair, I agree with you. Congress can do this. What we are arguing is that Congress should not do this because the science and the input on the ground has identified the area, and we should let the normal process of these planning, of this plan to go into place so that those private property rights can be exercised as each landowner chooses. As each landowner chooses. So thank you for bringing this amendment that focuses on the private property rights of the landowners to be able to participate in that. And with that, I yield back, Mr. Chair.
The young lady yields back. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm actually
Already
delighted.
recognized.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I'm actually delighted that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are talking about private property rights. That's wonderful, and I yield back.
The amendment.
Is there further discussion? I recognize myself. You know, it dawned on me during this discussion that we're talking about taking private property and putting it in the federal estate where there are no private property rights. You lose all private property rights when you put property into the federal estate. And we're not talking about a little bit of property. We're talking about 700,000 acres. We're talking about making this refuge 100 times the size it is right now. And, we believe in being good stewards of federal land, but we also believe in being good stewards of federal money. And it takes a lot of money to take care of a wildlife refuge that is almost the size of the state of Rhode Island. That's what we're talking about here. And, we've already got billions of dollars of deferred maintenance backlogs, and we should be focused on taking care of what we've got instead of adding more to the federal estate. It's, probably only in Washington, D.C., where it's considered a good idea to devote additional resources to extravagant land acquisition when the focus should be on managing wildlife habitat and providing recreational opportunities on existing refuge system lands. And again, maintaining the lands that the federal government already owns. And the federal estate is already about a third of the landmass of the country. We've got to do a better job of taking care of what we've got instead of adding more to it. I urge my colleagues to oppose the amendment, and I yield back. Is there further discussion?